I'm Bryce Holdaway. He is Ben Kingsley. We are the co-hosts of The Property Couch, and today we are doing a follow-up from our chat last week about New South Wales stamp duty, Ben. And we're going to talk today, among a couple of other things, Victorian stamp duty. But first of all, welcome to the Facebook Live with me, mate.
Thanks, mate. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Hey, last week, obviously, when we did the New South Wales chat, it was well received in terms of giving people just that basic understanding. It's a discussion paper. We're still a work in progress. There'll be more to be said about that. But following up from that, the Victorian Treasurer was under a bit of pressure a week later on the back of that announcement.
Will he? Won't he? Yeah. Look, I mean, the story goes, or from my understanding, the story goes that as part of the whole COVID review, the Treasurers did get to meet, and when they did meet, New South Wales Treasurer presented the option of property stamp duty reform, and the Victorian Treasurer was asked about it, and he said thanks but no thanks, not on the radar then, but now that New South Wales have gone public with it, one suspects, and I think we've talked a little bit before about this, but one suspects he's just going to wait and see, right, in terms of how much political heat is exchanged once it's implemented. But I think the policy is about right where you don't have to choose it. So it's just going to take a long time to sort of to migrate across to a property tax as opposed to a stamp duty and land tax. So yeah, that's it's also good to know as well.
Now, Ben, in that last little Facebook chat we had last week, I think you wanted an opportunity just to correct a little. I'll give you a little hint around land tax.
Yes. So I did have a little bit of a faux pas there. I claimed that land tax wasn't tax deductible, but no, you can claim a tax deduction on a tax, which is, so that was my bad on that one. So just correcting the record that land tax is tax deductible against your income tax. It's not a capital cost that is carried onto the sale or to offset against the future capital gains tax. So my bad there. I'll own that one.
Yeah, no problem. I think it's helpful for people to realise that the basics are, if you're exchanging in earning an income and you have an expense that's related to the exchanging of earning that income, generally speaking, it's deductible, right? Versus the reason that stamp duty, for example, isn't tax deductible with the exception of the Australian Capital Territory. I think it's because they've got lease. I mean, let me not do a second faux pas on that, but I know buyers' agency fees are deductible in ACT. It's because if you're paying stamp duty, you're actually paying it at the day that you make a transfer. So you are not in a position to earn income at that point. Therefore, it's a capital item. It's part of the capital cost of actually getting into the market versus having a general ongoing expense. So be helpful to do a little 101. But what I want to do is I want to suggest to everyone, I can see you there. We want to make this engaging. We want to know what questions you have. So a couple of things. Where are you right now? Are you listening to us in Victoria, New South Wales, Perth, overseas? So let us know in the comments box where you are. We'll read you out. But also want to know what questions do you have? Ben and I are going to stick around and answer some questions today. But first of all, we'll kick it off with stamp duty. So let us know you're here. Give us a like, give us a comment. Let us know where you are. Happy to engage. But should we kick it off, Ben, just to go into the 101 of what was announced by the Victorian Treasurer around some concessions. So brand new has a higher concession than established, which kind of makes sense if you were the person putting that policy in place, because the economic multiplier impact of brand new is quite significant. But yeah, 50% stamp duty reduction on brand new and 25% stamp duty reductions on established properties. Not $2 million properties, Ben, not 10 million properties, but they cap it out at $1 million or less.
$999,999 if it says up to, and not equal to. So it depends whether they'll round it at $1 million or whether they'll do 999,000.
It'll make it an interesting price point too, isn't it? You remember, I remember the $600,000 when you had all those concessions. That became a really, it's almost like at auction, if you're getting close to the final number, you just got there first, because it's just this hard handbrake where everyone's going, well, that's the magic number we want to stop on, and then in that case with the firsties, you all of a sudden you saw the parents kick in and just go, I got this, I'll cover you, let's go, and it became 601, 605, 607 because they were prepared to pay the interest.
Yeah. So it obviously expires on the 30th of June 2021. So that also means that there's a hard finish on it. So yes, it will be interesting to watch how auctions move up towards $999,999, and then the moment you pay $1 million or $1,000,001, then all of a sudden you've either got a 50% or a 25% additional stamp duty cost.
Well, let's put some numbers on that, Ben. If you bought $1 million house, the change would be $27,500 in your pocket on brand new, and if it was established, it'd be $13,700. So what you're saying is, if you were to bid an extra dollar, that extra dollar would cost you $27,501 for brand new, and that extra dollar would cost you $13,701. That's a significant increment for a buck.
You want the property, but yes, you're right. But it is definitely going to put some more competition into the market in terms of, people moving their desire to purchase prior to 30 June 2021, one would suspect, which will put a little bit more heat into a market that's already got a fair few buyers floating around there anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, there's still eligible first homeowner grants for regional. If you're building a new home, for those buying or building a new home in regional Victoria. So there's some opportunities there for contracts that sign up to the 30th of June 2021. Now, Ben, I'm seeing some people here. We've got Emily saying wanting to upgrade our established principal place of residence in Victoria next year. Super keen for this one. Damien Ratcliffe is in Geelong walking the dog. That's exciting. Dean is in Listerfield in Melbourne. Lee is in Bris Vegas, but live in Sydney. What's going on there? Nice little holiday, hopefully. Emily is in Yarra Valley. Graham is in sunny Diamond Creek. Dougal is in Victoria, 22, and have an established investment property. Am I eligible for my first homeowner's grant? Oh, Dougal, generally speaking, if you have already got your name on a title, generally you do not get access to the first homeowner's grant, but press in, have a look at that for your circumstances. But the idea is to help people get into the market for the first time. Because I actually was in the same position when there was some grants on offer. I had investment properties when I was going through a rent vesting phase, Ben, and I didn't have my first home at that stage. So I had to look into that. But you don't get an opportunity to have two goes at it. So, Ben, there was a couple of other things that was through the budget as well, be worth chatting about.
Yeah, so the other sort of big news was around the $500 million Victorian Home Buyer Fund, which was established to reduce effectively the entry cost of being able to get in. So it allows for what's called a shared equity model between the government and the purchaser, where the government will take a portion of equity in the property, which means that it'll help lower income earners get into the property. I really like this policy. I think it's sensible policy to help single household income earners get into bigger marketplaces like Melbourne and Sydney. But remembering this is a state-based initiative here in Victoria, so I think it's quite good for both new and existing dwellings. They'll contribute to the purchase price in exchange for a proportionate equity interest in the property is the terminology they use. So we think that one's a tick for the government in terms of that initiative. And in theory, it should be self-sustaining and self-supporting. So as the market moves and those homeowners eventually buy the government out, that government will be making profits on those funds. And hopefully that should be able to be reinvested back into a scheme like this, which I think is really smart.
Folks, I'm interested to see what your thoughts are with respect to what the change to the stamp duty will do for the market for prices. So let us know in the comments. Ben, what would be interesting, I think, is if you have someone who's got an extra, call it 27,000 on brand new, an extra 13,000. I think that will be absorbed into the market in terms of price, and then if you've got some people being enticed by a bit of extra demand, I think that'll be good too. But what's interesting is if you take 13,000, just in the case of established, if you take $13,700 off the stamp duty bill, and it means in theory someone's got an extra $13,000 to spend. It could be a bonus for the buyer, because you can get 80% of the value of the purchase, but you can't get 80% of the value of the stamp duty amount. So it enables you to borrow a little bit more, which will also give those people who are affected and who are trying to get in a little tiny extra leg up for their borrowing capacity.
Yeah, look,
their deposit capacity. Sorry.
Understood. So I think, look, just in reality, we know that these types of schemes, first home buyer schemes, and those types of things, they artificially inflate the demand in the marketplace, and when you do that, naturally you're going to see pressure on property prices. I mean, we've talked about this quite often. In a share market environment, you have a build, what we call a buyer build, and a seller list on the different sides of the market, and those literally hundreds, if not thousands, of buyers at any one time, and they can transact in proportionate amounts. When you're buying a property, you're traditionally buying it outright, so you only need to have two people on the buyer's ledger side, and all of a sudden you've got competition. And you don't need to have a deep market. Two competing interests can be enough to move the dial very quickly. And if you've got 6 registered bidders, 10 registered bidders, you know that effectively you've got a fairly good level of demand, and you would expect the price will find its final destination at where one of those buyers was a willing participant to transact on that property at the highest possible point. So I think from that point of view, it's these types of schemes do inflate the activity in the market, and their job is not necessarily to make it cheaper to get in, because it does artificially increase prices, but it is about more broadly speaking
more
about
activity.
Getting that's it, and getting the economy moving. I mean, these are incentives. We've said it before. The property market is significantly too big to fail. If you want to move consumption in an economy, you go household and you go property, and you protect that because of obviously the risks that are exposed on that, from the wealth effect, which we've talked about many times, in terms of people feel happier and healthier, the value of their houses are going up. Those people are looking to buy don't, but ultimately once they get in, they don't want the value to stagnate, and because they're paying interest on a loan that ultimately is probably going to be double the size of the loan that they originally took out. So I think from that point of view, people just need to remember that this is how the property market works in Australia.
Exactly. So Lee's actually got back to us, Ben. Lee's in. She said kind of holiday, checking out investment property. So 2 good things. 1, hopefully the property market's serving you there, and 2, hopefully you're getting some sun, because we're not getting it down here in Victoria at the moment. Hey, AJ Haddon Smith saying, I don't understand exactly what these changes are compared to existing stamp duty. Can you give a simplified overview comparing current to new changes? It's pretty straightforward. Go for it, Ben.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. If you have a $30,000 stamp duty bill on a brand new property, that will be a $15,000 bill. If you are saving, that's right, there's a saving right there, so it'll be $15,000 that you'll have to pay of the $30,000 for an existing property. Again, if it was that $30,000, you're talking about basically getting a saving of $7,500, and effectively paying, with some quick math, was it 22 and a half? 22 and a half. 7.5 to go.
You are so, great under pressure with the
there
maths.
You go. That's basically how it works.
All right, there we go. So if you're finding this helpful, folks, give us a like, or feel free to share it with your Facebook friends so we can spread the message, including our one from New South Wales last week. So check that out. We got one here from Emily. Is there any discussion?
Before we move on, I just need to finish that up. If you entered into a contract, so in other words, you signed an exchange contract by the 30th of June 2021.
Yeah.
Just sorry, I needed to finish that one off.
Yeah, so it's actually for contracts of purchase entered between 25th of November, which was obviously last week's announcement, to what you just said, 30th of June 2021. So if you entered into a contract on the 24th, Ben,
sorry,
November, no, it didn't happen. So there you go. Emily is asking, is there any discussion around stamp duty abolishment, annual land tax implementation in Victoria for the future? No, not at this stage. Ben sort of covered that a little bit earlier, so you might want to go and circle back to that. But Emily, at this stage, it's a bit of a wait and see what happens up across the border, up the road, to see what happens there. Joe's saying, historically, have prices flattened after short-term incentives and for the market to catch up to the artificial inflation. Not necessarily when you have an undersupplied market. But it might be a good opportunity for you to talk about some stats you got there, Ben, around supply.
Yeah,
I
love
think that ties into it.
I think it's important to understand. The quick answer to that is if you have market manipulation, and how you get market manipulation is you put a throttle on lending, and you obviously have a large supply, or you increase interest rates. Well, we know the Reserve Governor and the board have said interest rates are not going to increase for the next 3 years. We'll see what happens there. But ultimately, we haven't got any other throttle. So we've got record low interest rates, which means borrowing power is pretty high. So this temptation to sort of bring purchases forward, we don't think that that's going to slow down the market. And this is where we were looking at some interesting stats here. So I want to share those with everyone. So this is CoreLogic's information. We get this on a weekly basis. It arrives Monday morning, thanks to our great friends at CoreLogic. And we look at listings in property markets. So I just want to sort of explain what's happening here, because what is quite fascinating in terms of capital city values in Melbourne have changed by 0.6 of 1%. So they're up. They're increased over a monthly rolling average, 28-day rolling average. They're up 0.6. For the last week, it was flat. But what's interesting about Melbourne compared to, say, Brisbane, Adelaide, Perth, and even Sydney for that matter, is we actually have this year, in terms of properties for sale, there is a total number of listings at the moment, as reported on the 6th of December, was 26,046 listings across Melbourne. Over the 12 months, that's a 2.8% change. Now, that's change in the more stock direction. So that's what's surprising a little bit about, in terms of that the property prices are holding up, compared to, by way of example, the 12-month change in Brisbane is negative 22%. In Adelaide, it's negative 34%. And in Perth, it's negative 22%. In Hobart, it's negative 26%. Darwin, negative 38%, or almost 39%. Canberra, negative 26%. And Sydney, negative 6%. So all other marketplaces in terms of capital cities, their listings have fallen significantly over a 12-month period. Melbourne's market has actually increased. And in fact, new listings in the last 12 months is actually up by 20% in Melbourne. So that just gives you an idea that the market is still holding up pretty strong, which means that demand is still quite healthy in that particular market. And we've been talking about other markets like Brisbane and Adelaide, where demand is far exceeding supply, and we're seeing some really positive buying opportunities in those markets, aren't we, Bros?
We are, Ben. So Marie's got a question here, and we've answered it to a certain extent, but I think it's a good question to highlight the stamp duty changes. Hey guys, we brought back in March, and our house is to title in June next year. It's a house and land package. I assume we would be stuck without having to pay the 100%. It's a bit like when you paid full price and then the Black Friday sale comes along, Ben, and you kind of think, because I bought a course last week for 20% on Black Friday of the standard price, and I was only thinking, imagine the person who'd only bought it 2 days earlier at full tote, and then 2 days after that you get it. I got it for 20%. So it's kind of a Black Friday sale with a long bow, but it's effectively trying to say, from this period of time we are trying to stimulate demand in this little window. So if you fall out either side in terms of the time that you've entered into the contract, unfortunately you won't qualify. So Marie, it's a great question. Unfortunately, the answer isn't ideal for you.
Just take comfort in the capital growth.
Yes.
That you're going to get, I suspect, is probably what people are trying to buy your property for now compared to what you bought it for in March, in the height of the pandemic. I suspect you're probably in front of them right now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think you'll be in front of them. So I wouldn't be too concerned there, Marie. But I understand nobody wants to pay more than they have to. we got one for, that's it. So, okay, cool. So, Ben, I think we've covered off the stamp duty. We've covered off a few of the major announcements in the budget. So, interesting times.
A couple more, Bryce. I'll quickly round out some of the other big announcements. Obviously, the big housing build, which was $5.3 billion for 12,000 public and community housing dwellings. That's phenomenal. The other one that's of interest to us as investors and stock in market from a rental point of view is that they're looking to commercialise build to rent sector. So you'll get a 50% land tax discount for build to rent from 1 January 2022 until 2040. So that will provide these developments with an exemption for paying that land tax, and that will make it economically viable.
So that's one for the developers, isn't it, Ben? Instead of they put it into the marketplace, they put it into the rental stock, and it means that there's more opportunity for people to rent. But it's not necessarily for mum and dad.
It's not great for us. Great for us. Where's our 50% discount? We'll happily go and build 20,000 new rental dwellings across the country if we got a 50% land tax discount.
Yeah.
Where do we get the recognition for supplying all of that budding rental stock that's required across a growing nation? But anyway, that's my whinge for the day.
Yeah, exactly. So, anything else there, Ben? Any other bullets you want to bring up?
Oh no, that were the sort of main ones. There was a sort of 50% discount on commercial industrial property transactions in regional Victoria, and $52 million for planning reforms. Well, if that's about cutting red tape, I'm all for that. But if it's about supporting more people to go into VCAT, then that's problematic, right? It just means that the system's broken.
Very good. Hey, Ben, Marie's got a glass half full attitude. She said, yes, that's what I'm taking comfort in. Cannot get it for the price we got it for anymore. So, Marie, enjoy that. But
the silver lining.
Yeah, so folks, hopefully you've enjoyed this live. Again, feel free to give us a like or share it with some other people. Tag someone you think needs to better understand how these stamp duty changes are going to be. We'd love to share. And also we have a podcast each and every week that we go for, Ben. But before that, I just want to let everyone know, I think Ivis, if I get this timing right, we might put a little hyperlink just here to show folks that if you want a copy of our best-selling book for free, what we've done is we've actually gone to our publisher and said, hey, look, we want to buy some copies that we want to give out for free. So we have them in the office so that we can get that in the hands of as many people as we can. So whilst we've got stock, Ben, we're more than happy to send you a copy. Yeah, exactly. Good point. So if you go to the armchairguide.com.au, we'll give you a little spot to push on a button, give us your address, tell us where to send it. If you're happy to pay for the postage, we'll send you a book. Recommended retail price of $29.95. So we cover lots of things, Ben, but the reason I'm doing that is if we sit here in the shadows of Christmas on the 8th of December, where folks are wanting to take a break, have some time out, it might be a good chance to really spend that time to set the foundation and then really come out swinging next year, getting money smarts in place and setting up trapping surplus so that they can invest in property. Because we reckon we're going to get the roaring 20s again, the 2020s, where the amount of people that are going to land in this country are going to be that significant that if you own real estate, you would actually you'll actually do well in this next decade. So get a copy of that, thearmchairguide.com.au. And Ben, this Thursday we're doing our second instalment of the summer series.
Yeah, loving it. It's a deep dive into money and financial transformation. So that's what we're really, excited about, sharing real life stories that people can relate to as they go through that money transformation journey. So some of them have been phenomenal. I can't wait to share more of them.
Cross section of age groups, gender, situations, coming from a great money back story, coming from a terrible money back story, and everywhere in between. So, folks, you should check that out. So head on over to, it's actually every Thursday at 3 p.m. So why don't you head on over to thepropertycouch.com.au.